Hey, what's up guys, it's DarkArmedDuelist, and today we're going to be doing a Lightsworn Burning Abyss test hand video. So I'm really excited for this one because Gloomba actually requested this over on Patreon, and I am really excited to bring this one to you guys because it's an insane deck. Like, it's really insane. I've gone through a bunch of different builds of this, where you've gone with Judgment Dragon Turbo, which is what I kind of finally settled on, and I've gone through Sky Scourge Notarelis. There's been some insane like synergy with this deck that I've wanted to show you guys, and I finally settled on a Judgment Dragon Turbo because I felt like it was the most classic to combo off with your Burning Abyss monsters with a kind of a chaos build, and it works really well, and I'm really excited to show this one off to you, Gloomba. So without further ado guys, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell near so you can become part of the notification squad, and definitely check out the Patreon just like Gloomba did in the description below, where you can get all sorts of awesome rewards like getting your name description in a single video, getting a signed card to mail, or even getting to request a deck profile every single month to your Patreon along with test hands. So without further ado, let's get straight on into this, and definitely give Gloomba some love down in the comments down below, because this deck is really cool and really was exciting to make because it's just so weird. Like, it's really weird the way that it functions, because some of your Lightsworns actually are level 3s and it helps you make Dante, and then you can go into some really cool plays with Dante, like going into Zeus, and then it's just really cool. Like, I'm really excited to show you guys this one, and I actually have some mentions as we go through of things that you can even change to make it your own when you play through this deck. So let's go ahead and see what we can do and see what we can pull off. So like I said, there's a lot of different ways that you can build this deck. Like, you can build Notarelis Turbo, you can build BA, like, you can do the old school kind of version where you had, like, Burning Abyss Lightsworn with a Blackluster Soldier monster, Envoy of the Beginning Turbo. You can do Judgment Dragon Turbo, which is my personal favorite. You can do the Chaos build, where you do a 60-card Chaos build. This is actually 42 cards, which is what's really cool about the deck. I actually did throw in 2 extra cards just to kind of make it work, but with Lightsworns, they don't care. Like, they don't care if you play 50, 55, 57, 42, 45, like, they don't care, because you're just gonna mill as you go anyways. So you can play any number between 40 and 60 with Lightsworns, and it just doesn't matter. Like, the consistency might mess up a little bit, which is something that I had a problem with, because I kept trying to go to 50, but then I finally settled on 42 cards, and it worked, and it clicked, and I play tested it a lot, and it really worked, and I'm really excited to show you guys this. So without, let's get straight on into this now that we've shuffled the deck and see what we can do. So we're gonna go ahead and draw into a copy of Raiden, a copy of Graf, Seer, Libic, and a copy of Raiden. So this is not a bad hand at all. You can do some very simplistic stuff with this hand. You can, since we're going first, you want to play it a little bit protective. So we're going to go ahead and special summon out the copy of Libic, and then normal summon out the copy of Graf. I normal summon the Graf, I special summon the Libic, so I'm going to flip that face down like that, and I'm going to go ahead and overlay both of these for a Dante, because that's going to be the safe bet, because your opponent's going to think you're playing until you start milling BA. So we're going to go ahead and detach the copy of Graf, and we're going to go ahead and mill 1, 2, and 3 off the top of the deck, which the Felice is going to come to the field, and your copy of Graf is going to go off and be able to special summon a copy of Seer. If you want to, you can just let this go and not special summon, or you can do another play with this instead of milling, which is a little bit safer that I'm going to show you guys. Like, the average person is going to look at this and go, okay, I'm going to summon Dante. No. Let me show you what you're going to do, really. So we're going to go ahead and instead of making the Dante, we're going to go ahead and link these two away, and we're going to summon out the copy of our Cherubini. Now, this is where it gets interesting. Your copy of Graf will go off and special summon a copy of Seer. Now, this is the newer BA plays that you're going to be looking at. So we're going to go ahead and special summon that out to our side of the field, and then once you summon this to your side of the field, this is being protected by this, because it's going to get you those additional plays to protect it on your side of the field. You can then, if you want to, use your copy of Cherubini's effect to be able to send from your deck to the graveyard an additional level 3 monster to boost up a monster on your side of the field, which is really helpful. It's going to get you those additional plays. You can send a copy of Farfa, you can send a copy of Minerva. I usually like to send a copy of Minerva because she's a 1-of in the deck, and you run the chance of hitting a copy of either a Wolf or a Felice that's going to mill to the graveyard, because when she's sent from the deck to the graveyard, she lets you send an additional card off the top of the deck, which is going to be a little bit of a safe bet that you're going to be able to do. So we're going to go ahead and send a copy of Lila. Now, you didn't hit anything, that's totally fine, but you still have an additional play. Since we haven't used our copy of our Seer, we have a Seer in the hand that you can then special summon to your side of the field if you want to, and then overlay these two on your side of the field for a Dante. Now you can mill 3 off the top and you can get your additional plays. Now you're not going to get the special summon off the Seer, but that's fine. We've already gotten what we needed with the Cherubini and the copy of our Dante on our side of the field. Now we mill 3. We go 1, we go 2, and we go 3. That's totally fine because we're building up those names in the graveyard. We've already got 3 names in the grave, which is totally fine. And what I was going to mention is actually you can drop the Monster Reincarnation to play Pot of Avarice in the deck instead, which I'll probably mention when I do the deck profile as well, but it's totally fine. You can interchange those out. I play the copy of Monster Reincarnation because it guarantees me the copy of Judgment Dragon or exactly what I need out of the graveyard, and it gets something out of the hand. So, like, for example, if I had a Raiden in hand and I had a copy of Judgment Dragon in my hand, I could then drop the copy of the Monster Reincarnation. Like, if this was reversed, I could then grab this from the graveyard specifically and get my last name in the graveyard, which would be really helpful. So, with this particular play, I'm going to go ahead and end my turn and pass to my opponent. If they do destroy this, that's fine. I'm not worried about it. They can go ahead and plow through this field, and I'm going to go ahead and use the copy of Dante to grab my copy of Seer back to my hand. Now, when I draw for turn, going into the next turn, we're going to draw into a copy of Lila. So we're going to go ahead and special or normal summon out the Lila, and Lila's effect will go off. We'll send a copy of Raiden to the graveyard and immediately special summon it back, and then we're going to mill 2 off the top of the deck, hopefully hitting something, which we really don't, but then we can go ahead and synchro summon into a copy of, say, Michael the Lightsworn, which is going to get us an additional play to be able to banish a card, which is going to be pretty helpful. Like, this deck is about the grind game a little bit, where you're going to be going in a little bit after your opponent for multiple plays. So let's go ahead and go into the next test hand and see what we can kind of do, because you have multiple plays that you could do of that first hand, and there's a lot of different ways. Like, there might be a way that you guys see with that opening hand. Like I said, you could make the Dante first. That's why I showed you guys that, and then we went for the Cherubini instead because you had better plays and a little bit more synergy with the deck to go that route. And something else that I actually will mention to you guys, if you want to carry this deck to a 50 card build, you can play PK in here. You can play Phantom Knights in here and play like 3 copies of Torn Scales, 2 copies of Fogblade, a copy of Shade, and a copy each of Cloak and Boots, and it'll get you to a little bit higher of a monster count and a little bit more interesting, where you could go where I had that field before, where I had the Seer and the Cherubini, and you can link those away for a Rusty and then put 2 back row back here Fog Blades if you want to go that route, but you run the risk of milling them, which is why I didn't play them in this particular build. It's a little bit of a different build, and you can go that route, which is so interesting about Lightsworn BA. There's a lot of different ways that you can build this deck. So let's go ahead and cut the deck and see what we can get for our next one. So we're going to go ahead and draw into a copy of Tour Guide, which is pretty good off the bat, a copy of Farfa, Wolf's not that great, Monster Incarnation, and a copy of Graph. So this is not bad at all. We're going to go ahead and normal summon the Tour Guide. I always want to normal summon the Tour Guide first, and then we're going to use the Tour Guide's effect to special summon out a copy of Graph from the deck, which is going to give us just an additional play to grab our copy of Seer once we link summon into our copy of Cherubini. So we're going to go ahead and special summon out the copy of Graph to our side of the field. And once we special summon out the copy of Graph, you can then link summon these 2 together and immediately summon out your copy of Cherubini. Cherubini's effect will go off, and then your copy of Graph will go off first, special summoning out a copy of Seer from the deck, which is going to help you out a little bit in this particular hand. And then you're going to be able to use your copy of your Seer to be able to or not your copy of Seer, but your copy of Cherubini, to send from your deck to the graveyard a copy of Libic, because Libic is going to get you an additional play to special summon out your copy of your Graph from your hand, or your Farfa. I would probably special summon out the copy of Farfa in this particular instance, because the Farfa is going to get you an additional play during your opponent's turn. If it gets sent to the graveyard off your copy of Dante, you're going to get an additional play off of that. So we're going to go ahead and detach the copy of the Seer, and we're going to go ahead and we're going to mill 3 off the top. So we're going to mill these 3 off the top, which wasn't that great, but you actually got the copy of the Black Dragon, which is kind of neat, because if this card is sent from the field to the grave, you get to add 1 white dragon, but we sent it for the grave, for the field to the grave, so you don't get the search, which is the only downside to those cards. But we do have the copy of the seer that was sent to the graveyard, which then can special summon out a copy of Graph back to the field, which is going to help us out in the long run of things to be able to special summon out additional plays, because this is a little bit defensive to go in against your opponent. So we're going to go ahead and pass there. You could, if you wanted to, actually no, I wouldn't pass there. Go ahead and drop the copy of your monster reincarnation, discard your copy of your wolf, and then wolf will then grab your copy of your black dragon back, and then you can banish your copy of wolf to special summon your black dragon, which is kind of a really good play here because you can then link these two away for a Masquerena, which is going to get you an additional play during your opponent's turn. The Masquerena just helps out a lot in this particular instance, and just is going to be the best possible scenario to be able to go during your opponent's turn for a copy of Beauregard or your copy of Unicorn if you want to go for Unicorn as well. You have a lot of different plays with that particular field, because you can then during your opponent's turn link these two away and then immediately go for the copy of your access code to get a 43 beater on the field if your opponent can't get through it during the battle phase, or you can go for the copy of Unicorn by linking these two away and then discard the copy of Graph, which is going to get you even more plays against your opponent and more link arrows against your opponent to be able to go into the Unicorn, discard a card from your hand, your copy of your Dante will go off as soon as it touches the grave, which is going to get your Graph back as well, and then you're going to be able to use the copy of Unicorn to be able to bounce something, and then your copy of your Graph that touched the grave will then special summon out another monster from the deck, which can be any of your Malabranch monsters, which can be a copy of Seer, because if the Seer touches the grave, you get the Dante back, which is going to be helpful as well. So you have even more plays. So if you see something that you want to interrupt, you have the Unicorn, which is going to give you that just a little bit more advantage, which is super nice. And then when you go into your next turn, you're going to draw. The Raiden can normal summon. This doesn't destroy itself because of the copy of your Cherubini, and then you get the copy of your Raiden to mill the top two, which was a Lumina and a Felice, which then you can just special summon the copy of Felice on your side of the field, overlay right here, summon your copy of Minerva, and then detach a material from the copy of your Minerva to send 1, 2, 3 more off the top of the deck, and you had the copy of Chaos Space, which now you can banish from the graveyard to be able to grab the copy of your Wolf back and be able to put it on the bottom of the deck to get you an additional draw. So we're going to get an additional draw, which is another Raiden. Kind of puts us back to where we were, but you have the Minerva now, which is an additional play. Now, you can also, with this particular field, link the copy of the Seer and the Unicorn away and summon out a copy of Access Code and be able to pop cards on your opponent's side of the field, because you now have Dark in your graveyard and you have a Dark there, and you can just pop additional cards that they have, which is going to be super helpful to be able to pop at least one card and boost it up to 53 to be able to OTK your opponent. And you have the Minerva that can get you more plays, and then your copy of Cherubini can also send from your deck to the graveyard an additional monster, which we didn't grab the copy of White Dragon off the copy of the Black Dragon that we linked away, which you can also grab that. It's a little late, but you can. And then the copy of Minerva will then send a card off the top of the deck to be able to get rid of an additional play. So we're going to go ahead and send the copy of Raiden off the top, which you have this particular hand not bad at all to be able to get you an additional play. So let's go ahead and see what we can do for an additional hand and see what we can pull off. So that's not too bad at all. The only thing that I've really been thinking about is I'm kind of leaning towards throwing in the 3 extra ones with the way the playtesting has gone. I kind of was like, man, I kind of don't want to put the PK in, but I kind of do. So I kind of played back and forth with it, and I kind of judged not to for the deck profile. And so I've kind of left it how it is. But the Rusty Bardiche helps out a lot to be able to just summon it to your side of the field and be able to stop your opponent. So I might actually throw it back in. So let's go ahead and see what we can do for one more test hand and see what we can pull off. So for the last one, we're going to go ahead and draw and go 1, 2, oh, this is good, 3, 4, 5. This is really good. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to charge against our opponent, and we're going to mill the top 3, which is a Chaos Dragon, a Tour Guide, and a Judgment Dragon. And we're going to go ahead and grab out of the deck any Lightsworn that we particularly want, which it doesn't really matter which one you get. I probably would grab something that would be maybe a safe bet, maybe a copy of Raiden, because you're going to want to get another Lightsworn to the graveyard. Now that charge is not once per turn, which is what's really cool. So we're going to go ahead and charge again. So we're going to charge again, and we're going to mill 3, 1, 2, and 3, and we hit a wolf. That's great. So we're going to go ahead and use the copy. We don't have a Lightsworn in graveyard, which is a little unfortunate, but we do have the ability to normal summon out our copy of Raiden, and then Raiden will mill 2 more, which is a solar recharge and a copy of Torgad. So then you can overlay both of these if you want to, and go directly in for a copy of Minerva, which Minerva is usually the first turn play that you want to end on if you have 2 level 4s anyways, because you're going to get additional plays if she gets destroyed. So we're going to mill 1, 2, and 3 off the top of the deck, which is totally fine because we're using, we have Chaos Space in the graveyard and we have plenty of cards in the deck. It's not the greatest mills, I will mention, because you're not hitting a lot of things that you might want to hit, but you have some plays now for the next turn. But that's the thing about Lightsworns. I want to show you guys this because sometimes Lightsworns, they just don't hit very well, which is not great when you mill. That's the risk of Lightsworn. So when we go into our next turn, our opponent's going to destroy this probably, and we're going to get at least one more turn, and we're going to draw into a copy of Seer, which let's say we go ahead and normal summon out the copy of Lumina, and Lumina's effect will go off, discard the copy of Raiden, and then special summon it back, and then mill 2 off the top with Raiden, which was a solar recharge and a foolish, and then we're going to immediately synchro summon these 2 away for that play that we did the first time, which is going directly in for a copy of Michael, which is going to get us an additional play to pop a card, which is going to be pretty good. So let's do at least one more and see what we can pull off for this last test hand and see what we can do. So like I said, it does keep summoning, which is really nice to be able to do. And that second test hand is really, really nice for what you actually got to pull off against your opponent. It's a good deck, like the way that it actually pulls off those particular plays. So let's go ahead and see what we can do for one more test hand just for Gloomba. So we're going to go ahead and draw into a copy of Lumina, Raiden, Charge, Chaos Space, and a copy of Judgment Dragon. Okay, now we're talking. We got Judgment Dragon directly in our hand. And we got Chaos Space. So I would go ahead and immediately drop the Chaos Space and send the Raiden to grave. So once you get the Chaos Space and the Raiden to grave, you're going to be able to draw to your hand a copy of Chaos Dragon Levenair. So Levenair is going to help you out a lot in this particular hand because you're going to be able to go in for a lot of different plays. And I will mention this deck does a lot better going second because the deck does pull off a lot more plays to be able to go second. So we're going to go ahead and mill a copy of Graph, a copy of Judgment, and a copy of Allure, which is going to immediately get us a copy of Seer on our side of the field because the Seer is just going to get us additional plays. Yes, it's going to pop itself. Don't worry about that. We're just trying to get monsters in the grave. So we're going to go ahead and get the copy of Seer, and we're going to go ahead and add from our deck to hand a monster that we wouldn't mind discarding to the graveyard off our copy of our Lumina, which I would probably grab something like, I probably wouldn't grab the Fleece because I'm going to mill. Maybe a copy of Lila. Lila would probably be a safe bet to just get in the graveyard because we already have a Raiden in the grave, I believe. Yeah, we have Raiden in the grave. So we still have more plays that we can go off on. So we're going to go ahead and shuffle the deck up really quick. And then we're going to go ahead and normal summon out the copy of our Lumina, which is going to pop the Seer, which is fine. That's the only downside I wanted to show you guys about this is you kind of like you have moments where this will pop this and it's fine because you're just trying to get more darks in the graveyard for your Levenair, which is still okay. So we're going to go ahead and discard the copy of Lumina, and Lumina is going to go to the grave to be able to special summon out a copy of the Raiden, which then the Raiden will mill 2 additional cards off the top of the deck, which is a Chaos Space and our copy of our Lumina as well, which is going to get us more names. So we have a Lila, a Lumina, and a Raiden that we're about to have in the grave, and we're going to go ahead and synchro summon with these 2 monsters, or you can link summon. It's totally up to you. I would probably synchro summon. And then I'm going to summon, actually, wait a minute, hold on a minute. I think our copy of Chaos Dragon Levenair might actually come in handy here because the only light monsters you can get additional plays with that card, which we have a Judgment Dragon, which the Chaos Space could go off later on, but you're going to mill a lot of your names and you're going to banish a lot of your names. So it's totally up to you the way that you want to play this particular hand. I would probably consider just going ahead and synchro summoning for the copy of the Michael, because the Michael is going to be a safe bet to put on your side of the field, because it's going to mill an additional 3 cards off the top of your deck during the end phase. And you have the copy of Judgment that's going to get you an additional name during your opponent's turn, and you can kind of OTK your opponent with this. So we're going to go ahead and pass. Your opponent's going to get rid of this, and when it touches the grave, you're going to go 1, 2, 3 during your opponent's turn, and we're going to go ahead and let this go to the grave, and then we're going to draw, which is going to be a copy of Libic, which is great. And then we got 1, 2, 3, and 4. We got all 4 names that we need. We're going to drop a JD against our opponent to be able to blow board for 1,000. And then we have the Chaos Dragon Levineer that can follow it out behind, and you get to banish the copy of the Judgment Dragon, a copy of Lila and Lumina from the graveyard to be able to summon that, which will get you an additional monster on your side of the field, which will be the Lumina. And then you can then use your copy of Chaos Space that's in the graveyard to banish from the grave. And then grab your copy of the Judgment Dragon, put it on the bottom of the deck, and you get to draw another card, which is a charge, which is great. And then use the copy of charge and go 1, 2, 3, get the Felice as well. And then you're going to add from your deck to your hand an additional Lightsworn monster, which is going to be pretty helpful. Just to be able to get you an additional Lightsworn, just to get you an additional play, go ahead and add the copy of, say, Minerva. Minerva's effect will go, or you'll use the copy of Lumina to discard the copy of Minerva, and then your copy of Lumina will bring back your copy of your Raiden to your field, and then your copy of Raiden will go off and send the top 2, which will be a wolf, which you couldn't do anything anyways because you had this field. And then you're going to overlay both of these for a copy of Minerva, and then Minerva will mill an additional 3, which will be 1, 2, and 3, which is another wolf. And then you're going to special summon out the wolf to your side of the field. And at this point, if you wanted to link summon into Curious, you could, or you could just OTK your opponent. And as soon as you drop the JD, you could blow a board. So you had more plays there too. So you have pretty much like a lot of damage on board to OTK your opponent with, and you have more plays that you could go for if you wanted to. Instead of going for the Minerva play, you could have gone for a copy of the Chaosmatic or Chaos Ruler. You could have gone for that instead, and you still had a Libic in hand that you could have gone for more plays with. So you kind of got to play around with it and see the exact way that you want to go for your own test hand and your own play for this particular deck, because it's very interesting and you have a lot of different ways to go for. The only downside to this particular deck is that the Burning Abyss monsters don't that you can't have them on the field at the same time as your other monsters, but they do help stack the grave a little bit to be able to get you a little bit more padding for your Chaos Engine with your Levineer and your copy of the Black Dragon Collapse Serpent and stuff like that. Like, it's not bad, and playing the copy of your Envoy really helps out too, because you can get more Envoys to your side of the field by banishing them with your copies of your Burning Abyss monsters. It kind of stacks the grave a little bit for chaos plays. So I think that's it for this test hand, guys. It was really fun to do this one. I'm really excited to show this one to Gloomba because the deck, it works and it's really fun to play with, because you can always, like, sometimes you get really bad mills. Like, we had some hands, like the third test hand, it was terrible mills, and it just happens. Like, you have times like that in the build like this where you don't have good mills and it doesn't like shine. And that's the problem with Lightsworns, why they haven't been meta in a long time, is you have moments that they just don't get stuff and you have really bad times. But there's times where, like the last test hand that we got, and the first one was pretty good, but the last one was like the most insane one, that you got a Judgment Dragon, you got that whole field off, and then you got this really insane board, which is what Lightsworns are really good at and why I love playing a build like this. So without further ado, guys, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell near so you can become part of the notification squad. Definitely tell me what you think of this video down in the comments down below, and we'll see you guys in the next video. See you later, guys.